There we go. My name is Karyn Kondoff, and I am from the University of Texas at Austin School of Law. My official title is Faculty Services Representative, but I'm basically the Education Technology Coordinator. And with me is Andy Martinez. He is our one and only media services guru. So we are here to present on the renovation that we did last year on the Hill Digital Courtroom. I've been told that the little speed bumps in front of you are actually mics. If you press it down, it'll light, and then everyone can hear you ask your question. So please, I encourage any questions. Feel free, raise your hand, push the little button, mic, and we'll get started. Just a quick background on Judge Hill. You don't have to read all of this text. I'll hit the highlights. He was a graduate of UT. He has the remarkable distinction of being the only person in Texas history to be the Secretary of State, Attorney General, and Chief Justice of the Texas Supreme Court. And he and his family established a advocacy center at our law school, in addition to a teaching courtroom. Yep, see?
What I remember,
there we go. Can everyone hear that?
He was in town, he was in Austin, he wanted to come by and help teach classes. He wanted to know what book are we using in this class.
There we go. Is that better?
Skill are we teaching them this week? And so he was very involved in wanting to make sure that young lawyers were still being trained to be trial lawyers when they left here, whether the defense bar or the plaintiff's bar. He was very much interested in making sure that students were remembering and still developing their skills.
There we go.
So in that sense, I don't think it was a big surprise.
You want to go get him around the corner?
Wanted to do additional work in this courtroom on this passing.
All right, that was the director of the trial advocacy clinic talking about Judge Hill. He did a lot of work after his state service, really in practice helping advocate for Texans. He's most commonly known for the Deceptive Trade Act, but what I find interesting in researching him in this book that came up was, if any of you have seen the movie The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, that was based on the chicken ranch in Texas, and he was then Attorney General. And he leaked the story to the press, who then did an expose, who then put pressure on the governor. And then the governor went to his friend, the Attorney General, John Hill, and asked, what do I do about this? So he's the one responsible for getting it closed. All right, so getting started. And as this starts, as they all do, with a room in desperate need.
What can we do to make this courtroom the most effective learning tool for students?
It's driving me insane.
That was really simple, because technology is probably the single most difficult piece to teach students at this stage right now. Technology itself is certainly developing faster and faster and faster.
Would you get him from around the corner?
Law school curriculums in particular aren't designed, haven't been designed with technology in mind.
Okay, and again, that was Tracy talking. This room, this floor plan was from '99, and actually we had the donors come visit, and these little semicircle tables were in this room. And as these rooms, often furniture was moved in between rooms, so it was missing a lot of furniture and in desperate need of a renovation. Somehow this room missed the renovation that we had done with the other four for quick media. So there was no way to connect a laptop or a doc cam. So in February, again, the donor visit and a very rough weekend. The room looked very rough. They gave $100,000. And I say euphoria followed by harsh reality. When we were told this total, we were like, oh my gosh, we could do so much. And then they came back and said, well, the donors want to use some of that money for a professorship. So we went from $100,000 to, oh, by the way, can you do this for $30,000? Yeah, the media part, but not the furniture that you want. And so there was kind of a pull and push and pull. We tried to get this moved into two other courtrooms. We have Eidman and then Jeffers that already had quick media, so they already had bits. Eidman is our formal courtroom. It looks like a real courtroom. When the Texas Supreme Court comes to do court proceedings, that's where they are. And so we wanted to maybe do media upgrades in that room. Jeffers is an all-day, everyday courtroom. It has a courtroom front that's not really used that often, but a lecture hall back. And we were thinking, that would be a great place to do some media upgrades. Obviously, the donor family wanted the money to go into the courtroom that bears their name, the Teaching Courtroom, so that's where it went. Trial Advocacy's vision, as I mentioned, was that they have 4 other teaching courtrooms. So they wanted to use this to show the donors of the other 4 rooms, hey, look what the Hill family did. Look at what renovations we've done. This has become the most popular courtroom. Why don't, would you like to upgrade your courtroom now? And then even though we started in March of 2010, the room was in use until after finals. Basically, Student Affairs told us we couldn't do anything. So while we had all of the plans, we couldn't do any of the action. And then classes started August 25th, which meant we needed this room done 2 weeks before classes started so that we could go in and test. So we were kind of crunch time, June to really the beginning of August. And then this is the floor plan. I know this means nothing to you, but here's our little room in the corner, and then here are the other 4. And again, just basic tables, a longer table, and then where the jury is.
We were open within a budget to decide what it was that we thought would be the most effective and efficient technology. And so with Karyn's help, with Andy's help, with everybody's help, we were looking around the country at what are the federal courts doing, what are state courts doing, what's the Courtroom 21 project doing, so that we could decide what are the skills that law students need to learn the most, and what
I really need you to
likely
get him.
have
Would
available
you
to
go around the
them
corner?
as they go out and practice as lawyers. And so that was kind of the guiding force behind deciding what to present to the family. And then once we kind of made proposals about we want this to be a state-of-the-art courtroom, they were thrilled. They were great to work with, and so from doing everything from new furniture to all of the new courtroom technology, they were on board with all of it. In one way, I think that the daughter that's not the lawyer was really the one, because she's been so involved in the medical field, really saw this as, but of course we should be at the cutting edge of technology. And so, in fact, one of the great things about their last visit here was we want to make sure we stay ahead of the curve. And so if you figure out there's something new, that there's something better out there that our students need to know, we want them to know about them. We want to make sure that this isn't a gift that becomes obsolete anytime soon. So we got very lucky with the ability to have a donor family that was willing to commit to technology, but also to give us the flexibility to decide to buy what it was that we thought was the most effective use of their money.
All right. So as Tracy mentioned, influences were the Courtroom 21 project. Harris County, the family were all lawyers with the exception of the one that she mentioned who was married to a lawyer. So they were familiar with the Harris County, and then I had done research with the Corpus Christi Federal Courthouse. At the bare minimum, they wanted this to match what the federal courthouses had. And then the donors wanted a Plan A, a Plan B, and a list of a la carte items. They wanted, this is at $50,000, this is what you'll get. At $35,000, this is what you'll get. And Tracy had wanted this to be use experimental courtroom technology. Let's trailblaze. Let's use this as our opportunity to maybe do some new things that aren't being done. And then as things go on farther, things get dropped, like interactive whiteboard. We didn't end up putting one of those in. Jury monitors. I'm sure we've all seen that each juror has their own monitor. That was cost prohibitive. So we ended up putting a large one. A kill switch. They wanted to give the judge the opportunity to black everything out. And so we had a kill switch put in, which the instructors really liked, the power. And then again, quick media. The other rooms had done quick media, so this was our opportunity to put quick media in the room. And by that, you come in with a laptop and you connect it and you're able to present, or on a, or on a dot cam, or the DVD VCR. They also, though initially, this was a classroom. This was a seminar room. So they wanted to be able to have a turnkey to do class mode or do jury mode. One of the great things that we were able to do because of this donation was go to student affairs and say, we put X amount of dollars into this room. It is no longer in rotation for a classroom. We were able to lock it down so that trial advocacy is the only one that can use this room. They use it in the rotation with the other teaching courtrooms. Before that, this room also did reception duty. Career services would use it when law firms would come and interview students. So you had drinks and you had food, and we were telling them there's no way that you can do that with the electronics that are in this room. So that was nice to be able to say that this room is now off limits. And then initially they wanted to cut a window in the door, and we basically were able to tell them that's not going to work. None of the other courtrooms have it. Annotation tools were very high on the list. The ability to not only annotate, but to capture that annotation and then redisplay it later. We ended up with 4 LCDs, one for the judge, counsel, witness, and jury. Again, having every juror having an LCD, that was cost prohibitive. How to film this? The room, did you get hold of it? The room came with 3 cameras, and so the need for an HD flip camera was obsolete. And then the discussion of, do we want an LCD or projector? We ended up with an LCD. We didn't want to put anything in the ceiling. Fixed versus mobile furniture. Again, we were putting all of this, these rooms, furniture would walk, and so we didn't want that. We wanted fixed furniture that wouldn't walk. We wanted a lectern that stayed in that room, that wasn't a mobile lectern that had equipment in it that would go from room to room. Tracy, the director, was very adamant. She did not want a computer. She did not want a dedicated computer in this room, and she did not want a printer. This was going to be the paperless courtroom. So in a way, that was nice. Everything is, students come in with their laptops. They've got a USB key. And then the donors wanted it to look like a courtroom. So they wanted a raised judge's bench, new furniture. The initial furniture estimate, I should mention that this building, when it was built, it was decreed that everything would be cherry. And if you know anything about furniture, you know that cherry wood furniture is very expensive. The initial estimate for furniture and electrical was $28,000. That was like over half of our budget. So we went back and we tried to modify and make use of the furniture that was existing in the room. We did do a very nice judge's bench. We did do very nice counsel tables, desks, but no high back chairs. Everything else was reused, cleaned up and repurposed. Limitations of the space, and you will see why we wanted to move this into the larger courtrooms. These rooms are 18 by 20 feet. And so we went through about 10 different iterations of how do we move furniture around so that everything fits, so that the jury can't see the judge's monitor. And along the back wall here, we've actually got cameras. So how do we, when and if we want to video record this, how do we make sure that we are capturing everything? And you'll notice we went from a 9-foot judge's table and 5-foot counsel tables to something that was a little smaller. Here was the favorite floor plan, but unfortunately the witness never sits here with the judges. The witness sits off to the side, and so the door would have whacked them anytime someone would have come in. So here's our winner. We've got the judges along the back here, and what you can't see was that this is a fire blind. It's a fire shelf, and so we actually have part of the ceiling that juts out. So very tall people would hit their head. So that's why it was decided that the jurors shouldn't sit back on that back wall. It just doesn't like me. I'm sorry. There we go. Okay, so the new furniture. Remember we went from 5 foot to 4 foot. I kind of wish that I'd taken a measuring tape in retrospect, because while 4 foot sounds nice, we're now unable to take the 2 chairs, council chairs, and put them under the desk. They fit very nice behind it, but apparently this 1.5 inches, 2 inches on each side was too much. I need just an inch more to put both chairs underneath. And then we've got the judge's bench, which you'll see in a couple of pictures later on that it looks very nice. All right.
What we chose, I think primarily for me as an educator and a trial lawyer thinking about what it was that the students needed, was in some ways very practical, very concrete. You're envisioning what's going to make an opening statement more effective, what's going to make a cross-examination more effective, what's going to make closing argument more effective. Because technology in itself is just technology. So there's a value in them learning how to use every piece of equipment in the room, but the bigger value is, how do I make that equipment make me more persuasive? How do I reach my audience? How do I convince my audience? How do I make sure that the technology is always a tool and is never a means to an end in its own right? And so I think for us, as we designed exercises, as we thought about what it was that we wanted, that was kind of the biggest principle that we needed to follow.
All right. So I'm going to go over the council side of the room first. All right. And there are those lovely tables. And as you can see, right here is our lectern, or what we call the rack. And so defense sits on this side, and then prosecution sits on this side. All right. And then back to that lectern, we have a Crestron panel up top and VGA connections on each side, and then the telestrator. You probably saw the monitor. The Crestron panel controls everything. So the DVD, VCR is in the rack. The defense laptop, prosecution laptop, there's a doc cam that sits next to it. And then the VTC is video teleconference that we've got. And then there is a USB connector and a power outlet that's also kind of resides underneath the Crestron. All right, so here I've just hooked up the defense laptop to the telestrator, and so you can kind of see it's right now mimicking what's on the laptop. And then just another shot. And then for our telestrator, we've got an undo, a color, a save, and then a clear zones. So when they're annotating, if they want to change colors, it will cycle through about 8 different colors. And then if they mess up, they can always click the undo, or they can actually clear the screen.
Telestrators, on the other hand, I thought were most useful because that's where you really let a student learn the skills that they need in a direct and a cross-examination. Because it's more than just displaying the exhibit on the screen. Displaying the exhibit on the screen is what an Elmo can do. But the ability to put a witness in the chair and say, show me where you were, or mark where this happened, or diagram this, that's what's really useful to a jury.
Lovely. My battery just died. I don't think I have it. I'm going to need him. I'm so sorry. Technology is wonderful. Here. The telestrator? We had always called them ELOs because that's actually the ELO is the screen. I don't have my thing in here. Where's the... yeah. Okay. I'll take this opportunity if anyone has any questions. Yes. Go ahead.
So what is the software that they use for the annotation that You said it allows you to save what you're doing?
That will be in the future slides, but right now it's the Beckler makes a point maker. Okay, it should be lectern computer. I need you to get someone.
So not only can they annotate, can the defense and the attorneys annotate, but they can annotate at the witness stand as well?
Yes. And again, I
Those are the wheels over there.
apologize. Yes. Oh, good God. Deep breaths, deep breaths. Just get there. Okay. This is ours. This is theirs. I don't know how many times I have to. There we go. Okay. All right. I'm just.
I think primarily for me as an educator and a trial lawyer,
There we go.
thinking about what it was that the students needed was in some ways very practical, very concrete. You're envisioning what's going to make an opening statement more effective, what's going to make a cross-examination more effective, what's going to make a closing argument more effective. Because technology in itself is just technology. So there's a value in them learning how to use every piece of equipment in the room, but the bigger value is how do I make that equipment make me more persuasive? How do I reach my audience? How do I convince my audience? How do I make sure that the technology is always a tool and is never a means to an end in its own right? And so I think for us,
I
as
give
we
up.
designed exercises, as we thought about what it was that we wanted, that was kind of the biggest principle that we needed to follow.
Have I mentioned that it's my first time at CALI and this is my first time presenting too? All right. So the counsel side of the room. We had already gone through those pictures. So let me get.
Was this particular professor someone who helped you kind of sell this to the donors?
That is, and I'm so sorry, that is actually Tracy McCormick. She's the director of the trial advocacy, the clinic program. So she's actually the director. So she was the one that really wanted to make this the courtroom of tomorrow. And that's actually what she kind of calls it, as, you know, their trial advocacy's courtroom of tomorrow. That is one thing, having been development before coming to the University School of Law, I really feel they missed the opportunity to rename.
Telestrators, on the other
All right,
hand,
we'll listen to this again.
I
We already
thought
listened
were
to this?
most useful
Or no?
because that's
Okay.
where you really let the
I queued up the
student
wrong
learn
video. That's
the
right.
skills that they need in a direct and a cross-examination. Because it's more than just displaying the exhibit on the screen. Displaying the exhibit on the screen is what an Elmo can do. But the ability to put a witness in the chair and say, show me where you were, or mark where this happened, or diagram this, that's what's really useful to a jury. But, for example, one of the problems we found immediately before we even had students involved in this is that the traditional technology, kind of the box sets that they were selling to courts, didn't have a way of capturing that testimony. And so for us, it was very important not just that students be able to have a witness mark on a diagram certain information. It was more important that I be able to pull up that exact information on cross-examination and add to it. And then it was going to be even more important that we be able to pull up the different lives of that exhibit so that it could be meaningfully brought to the jury in closing arguments. Because there wasn't any point in developing that testimony if you're not going to be able to bring it back in front of the jury and use it for them in a closing argument. And so that was kind of a piece of technology that the individual components of that technology existed, but to date, courts weren't linking those things. When we called around and asked courts, for example, how are you preserving that, we got things like, well, we take a picture of the exhibit while it's up on the while it's up on the screen, and that's what we use. And at least for us, for teaching purposes, that wasn't going to be very useful. So, very much for us, the development of this courtroom has been very practical and very specific so that we can think about how are they going to use this technology, how do we design exercises to teach them how to meaningfully use the technology. So that they're not just playing with toys, they're really thinking about being a lawyer, but being a lawyer presenting information to a specific audience, and how do I make this information meaningful and useful to the audience that's receiving it. And the technology needs to be the tool and the vehicle that helps us communicate that message.
All right. I will put up the slides. I put the PDF up that doesn't have the audio and video, but I will put them up this afternoon. Going back to what she was saying, we were really getting just a wide variety of people that literally take a digital camera and stand in front of the screen and just take a snapshot. And for us, like she said, that wasn't going to work. When I go, as I mentioned before, the Plan A and Plan B, I really don't know what's going on. When we first proposed this to the family, the ability to capture was in Plan B, because at the time it would have cost us $2,000–$3,000 more to capture the image. Timing is everything. As we finished this project and as we discovered that really capturing that image was of the utmost importance, Beckler had just come out with a new point maker. So, instead of $2,000–$3,000, we were able to get it for an $800 upgrade, which was very much better. Again, as I mentioned, we have the undo, the color, the save, and the clear. Some other options that we aren't using, there's the ability to freeze the image. If you have a DVD playing, you can freeze the image. And print. Again, we don't have a printer in the room, but this is able to print to a network printer. All right, and so here is and I don't know if you can see my little guy, my little stick person at the bottom. So I'm counsel, and I'm going to the witness, and in your testimony, you said that you were right here, standing right next to the arch. And then the judge will see this. Judge, I'd like to show this to the witness. And so if the judge approves, then they can send it to the witness. And the witness can go, why, yes, I was standing there. I remember it was a sunny day. This is what the witness has drawn, is the sun. And it was cloudy. We thought it was going to rain. And then I can go back to my monitor, and I can go, so was it at this point that you pushed Jack down the hill? And Jackson Green. So you can see I've annotated, the witness has seen it, the witness has added something, and then I've come back and I've added something. At any point when I want, I can click save and it will capture the image. And then as counsel, I'll get this little screen. It will tell me that it's verifying and it's saving to the USB kit, the USB stick. And it will tell me, the status of the saving. It will tell me the number. And then if I want to use this image again, I just make note of that number because it saved it as an image on the USB key, and then I can bring that back up in closing arguments. And feedback is always a wonderful thing. The point maker also shipped with a tablet, and the tablet is very nice. It comes with a little pen if you want to write words. You can also annotate on the tablet as well, and it sits up in the top of the rack. At the very bottom of the rack, you'll see the cables. There's actually a keyboard. I can use the keyboard as well. And this is the little splash from Point Maker, so forgive me, it's got the football. I love how they sell this to both coaches, and it is perfect in courtrooms. right there in the bottom. I really don't know why it doesn't like me. All right, and so this is the point maker. This is all the hardware that can go. We've got touch screens for counsel and then a touch screen for the witness. And then we've got the tablet that is occasionally used and then the keyboard. We have a high definition LCD projector for the jury. And then counsel brings in their laptops, but we also have a dot cam and a DVD VCR unit. And then standard definition DVD VCR, sorry. But so these are all the outputs and inputs that are actually on the unit. All right, and now on to the judge's side of the room. Ooh, lovely cherry furniture. It's actually kind of dark. You can't see the paneling. So this is the judge's touch screen. And because the judge's touch screen is a little bigger, you'll notice that the buttons are lit up. So right now the judge has selected View Defense Laptop. The judge can click Prosecution Laptop, or they can do the DVD VCR combo. And then that information will actually show up on their monitor. And then again, this is just a close-up. You'll notice at the bottom, the judge has the ability to send to court. That will send to both the LCD and the witness, or they can just send to the witness by themselves. And then this is the all-kill switch. This actually sits in on the judge's bench. System power, they can turn all the power, turns everything on. But then the all-kill switch, once they click that, if counsel has put something that's objectionable, they click that, everything goes blank, or everything goes black, and then the judge sees that they've overridden the system, and then counsel sees, you know, hey, you've done something objectionable, the judge has overwritten you. You know, I keep moving the mouse like that's going to make a difference. Okay. I really wish I knew what was going on. All right, so at the far end on the left, you'll see that's the judge's widescreen, and then right here is the witnesses. And up at the top, you'll notice I've put the same stickers so that they know what is undo, what is color, what is clear. And that is one thing to note. I found this out in giving training, that the witness can actually clear the whole screen. So if counsel has annotated and the witness wants to add, if they accidentally hit that clear, it does actually clear the whole screen. Yes, we're talking to the programmers now. That wasn't something we wanted. All right, and again, the witness sits off to the side so you can kind of get an idea of how that is set up. And then there's the LCD. And it sits up kind of in the middle of the room. And then there it is, putting my little Jack and Jill annotation. All right, so here are the details. The good and the bad. Here was our work timeline, but things don't always go according to plan, which I'm sure all of you who have done renovation know. The furniture wasn't installed until over winter break 2011. Remember, we started talking in March of 2010. We started doing things in the room June, July of 2010. The furniture was special. I understand it takes 8 to 12 weeks. But through one problem or another, it wasn't actually installed until winter break 2011, which meant we had temporary furniture until that time. And as nice and neat as we tried to cable things into the temporary furniture, we were finding that cables were slipping and coming apart and actually taking the entire room down. So we had the vendor out. They were great. They would come out and they would troubleshoot the problem, but it was obviously a frustration. Once the furniture was installed, grommets were cut so that we could put all the cables through the judge's bench, and then the vendor finished final touches in setting that all-kill switch. Once all that was done, the room has been flawless. It has worked perfectly every day, which for us is great because, as I said, this room is part of a rotation, and so it could be 2-3 weeks before we realized something was wrong. And then I know you can't read any of this, but this is basically the equipment listing. And again, I'll put these slides up. But right here, Beckler CPN 5000, that's the point maker. It was the first high-resolution point maker video marker with integrated capture, print, and TCP IP networking features. And so I wanted to make a big deal about this because this is what makes the room. This is what makes the annotation possible, the capture of the annotation, and the ability to then bring it back up during closing arguments. Breakdown of costs. Technology was only about $35,000. Furniture And that includes electrical, carpentry was $15,000. Yes?
How did you come across this company, and are there other courtrooms that are using them? And also, how's their support? Are they okay?
Pointmaker Beckler was great. We actually got them through our audio video vendor, Visual Innovations. I know they do work in Texas, Arizona, and Louisiana. I can give you the information for Pointmaker. I've got the web URL. They were great. When this first was put in, for whatever reason, it ships with a USB key, but our unit didn't come with a USB key. So we were putting other USB keys in, and we were finding they weren't working. Their tech support was great. Less than a week, 2 weeks, we were able to use any USB key, from the little dinky 2 gig that they sent to 8, 16 gigs. And I should mention that there is a Pointmaker USB key that stays in the room, but each instructor that cycles through this room was given an 8 gig USB key. And basically that USB key acts as our court reporter. All the images are saved to it, then when the students need it, they take it out, they put it in their laptop, and they're able to call up the image. So for the total, that was about $50,000. Electrical and carpentry, as I mentioned, there were 3 existing video cameras, teleconference cameras along the sidewall. We ended up either adding new or additional electrical outlets. If we had one, we put in a quad. And then data ports, both the rack, which is where counsel stand, and then the judge's bench needed data ports for Ethernet, the Crestron and CrestNet. And then those feed the images to the TV.
For the students, this is their favorite room. There is no question but that they want to be in the Hill courtroom whenever they can, which is really encouraging because while this generation of students has certainly grown up with technology and are certainly adept at technology, you'd be surprised at how hard it is to get them to merge technology and advocacy. They don't like to be in a setting where they're not as comfortable. They still got trained with walking the paper exhibit across the room to the witness and showing it to the witness, and saying, mark this, identifying it, having them do it, having blow-ups. And so even for students who text and page and do everything all the time, doing it in a classroom setting, doing it in a courtroom setting, doing it in competitions, doing it in class, is still very daunting for them. And so it's encouraging that now, because the classroom is here and it's a part of their everyday learning, they're excited about coming in here to use it. They're excited about playing with the technology and seeing how it can help them propel their advocacy. The next step will be that they become very comfortable then in using that technology when it matters, when we're actually doing a trial. And the biggest step, of course, is that they're comfortable doing it and using it when they leave the law school. One of the things I try to teach current students is that this is a niche that you can fill within a law firm. For older lawyers like me, who either aren't as aware of what current technology can do and how easy it is to be able to better communicate your message, this is something that new law students can bring to the table. Take me to that hearing because I can help you figure out a way to show the judge this message better. You know, I can do this in a courtroom and it's really easy. And so hopefully the students play with it here so that it becomes second nature to them, so that this is as comfortable as taking a paper exhibit used to be.
All right, hopefully the next slide will cooperate because it's a 360 of the room. All right, so we'll start at the LCD.
As you get, as jurors become younger and younger, newer jurors want to learn from a screen. Part of what I teach is students recognizing who their audience is. For an ISO gray-haired lawyer like me, the screen is not my primary learning mechanism. And so I don't find
So that's where our jury sits.
I want to have paper. I want to hold something. And so for boomers and seniors that are on the jury panel, they want paper. But for everybody younger than that, paper isn't valuable to them. That the screen is how they learn, it's how they've always learned. And that's where they're most advanced. And so
there's the Crestron on the rack, and you'll see we've got the dot cam plugged into the power.
Law students have to be trained to persuade.
And then there's the little USB port. We had them feed it through the rack.
Whether they're in a jury trial, or whether they're in arbitration, or mediation, or a hearing, they have to be able to figure out who's my audience, how are they best going to be persuaded, and now how do I make technology work for me as a persuasive tool.
All right. So let's see. Does anyone have any questions? I was going to say I've got a handout that I did for the students and the instructors. I can share that real quick, but if you've got a question.
Yeah, that kind of, I guess, feeds right into that. It's how difficult, or how did you organize training faculty on how to use this to teach?
We, at the beginning of the semester, each semester, we had an orientation, and it was about, I'd say, 20, 30 minutes, and it really was just walking, more for the students, walking them through that you've got to connect your computer here. So we have this handy-dandy, each side of the rack has the VGA, plug it into the VGA cable on your computer. Mac users will need to have a computer for their own, or will need to have a converter for their own. And then it just went over, press the power button, it'll tell you that the system is on, and then press these buttons for what you need. For the instructors, it was really easy because their touchscreen is a lot more self-explanatory. They literally just had to sit there, and when the student said, Your Honor, I would like to display this evidence to the witness, they just clicked. They proved it first. They saw it on their screen. They just clicked send to witness, and that was all they had to do. Send to witness, send to court. So their side was really easy. And then again, this is just a close-up. When you have the defense laptop selected, it tells you. So it tells you what mode you've selected, and then just the different buttons on the Crestron for the DVD, VCR player that you've got controls. There's also a remote inside the rack. And then again, just the extra buttons, and that it verifies the storage. And I do make a big deal out of that so that they know you need to be writing down this number. If you want to call this up again in closing arguments, make sure that you make a note that is, and it will say IMG 11 or whatnot. So you need to write that down so that when you have the USB stick, you're not spending a lot of time looking through the images, what was the image I wanted to use. And always make sure that it says store to disk complete. Because if the USB key isn't in there, it will give you an error message. And then again, inappropriate content, there are two ways that the judge can deal with it. They'll press the all kill button. And then again, the judge's side, theirs is really easy, self-explanatory. Click to view the defense laptop, approve the content, click to send it to witness. Anyone else? Yes.
You said when you were calling around the local courtrooms to see how they were, dealing with the issue of saving this data and stuff. What is your sense of the ratio or percentage of courtrooms just in the area, in your area, that actually have this technology? I mean, is it? None
of them have this particular. In fact, Corpus wanted to know, once we had found this, Corpus wanted to know the unit. I think they were in the process of looking at renovating their courtroom. Some of them had digital cameras, so they were just walking up and taking a picture. Other courts were actually, their unit was plugged into a printer, and so they would print it out. And then the court reporter would take that and put it in with the rest of evidence.
By and large, all courtrooms have some form of digital
annotation. Yes, I'm sorry.
Because I think it's important, if you're thinking about, say, we're just updating to this at Richmond, and it seems like we're almost kind of late, with the transition to teaching this kind of technology, as you were saying.
Right. I'm sorry.
They
were up to speed on annotation. So yes, they all had annotation, and I think that's why the family wanted to make sure that we had at least what the federal courts had. And the federal courts were moving towards digital, sending evidence electronically, and then annotation. Right, exactly.
So, legal teaching in some ways is maybe a little bit behind.
Well, and that's what Tracy had mentioned. She had mentioned that, the technology is out there, but the way that we teach it, we're behind. So, right, we used this as an excuse to kind of get up to speed and to teach them skills that they could then go out and say, hey, I've got these skills. I'm familiar with the technology that's in that courtroom. Send me. Yes?
Did you find any other products besides your point maker that did similar functionality?
I have to tell you, we've used Visual Innovations before, and so we went, we had a laundry list of what we wanted, and they recommended Point Maker, and the original unit we really liked, but again, we wanted that ability to capture, and the fact that Point Maker then came out with a new unit that allowed you to capture the annotations. We really didn't hesitate to research other units. When I called around to the courtrooms, they had other vendors, other equipment, but none of it could do the capture. And so, as I mentioned and as Tracy mentioned, that was really, it was a make or break, to be honest. The room was finished and we didn't have that little bit, and we basically were told, you need to go back. We need to find out a way to do this. What had not become a priority was suddenly a very high priority. So, yes. Yeah, I'm not sure if they're working. It's funny you mentioned that, because the vendor sent me a picture, and I guess I had forgotten that he's about my height without the 4-inch platforms. And so I'm seeing this rack, and I'm like, yeah, I think it'll work. And then it arrived, and we were like, oh my gosh, it's huge. And there are actually wheels. I'm not sure if you could see. We could have taken them off the wheels and put them just on little nubs so that the cables could still feed through. But we haven't heard that much of an issue. We were going to give it a semester, and it's actually been in play 2 full semesters, and we haven't heard from trial advocacy asking us, can you please lower the rack? Students don't seem to have a problem with it. They've got their touch screen right here. They've got the Crestron that actually can fold down a bit so that it's out of the way. And their laptop's right here. So it hasn't been an issue, we'll put it that way. Nobody has come to us and said, can we put a little bench here so that they can stand up so that they're high on the rack. I will say that the Harris County Courthouse, which Visual Innovations had actually done, so that's why they were familiar with the Point Maker, their rack is actually long, and it sits out like this, and then the dot cam actually sits on one side. And in retrospect, having a short, long may have been better. But remember, for us, the room is 18 by 20, and you saw that little 360. Andy was probably like in the middle of the room or off to one side. I'd say we probably have maybe 6 foot, probably a radius. So if we had put a lower rack, that kind of would impeded the walkway. Any other questions? I think there was one over here. Yes.
Kind of a silly question. Other than unplugging their laptops, can the counsel hide what's on their laptops from the judge, or can the judge look at any time?
By clicking dot cam, and if there's nothing on the dot cam, I found that, yeah, you don't see anything. I also noticed that from the judge's touch screen, that if I click defense again, I don't see what's on defense. It's kind of like a toggle. But again, that's from the judge. But if I'm defense and I'm plugged in, but I don't want the judge to quite see what I've got, and they're still clicked on me. Remember, the judge has to actually physically click you. If I click dot cam, then the rack thinks that it needs to send the image from the dot cam. I will tell you that Tracy also uses this, and the instructors use this as training for the students. not to have Messenger on, not to have Google Talk on, because you're doing that exactly. The judge can see that you're surfing Facebook. So that's kind of training for them. You need to turn off Messenger. You need to turn off these things if you don't want them to pop up and have the judge see. Any other questions? Yes?
Where's the kill switch? Because I see that it's not actually on their Crestron panel, which is where ours is.
They wanted a button. I kid you not, a button. Yep, there it went. I just went by it. Ha ha. Okay, so here, let me do this. I really don't think. Do you see in the middle that little black, my little laser printer? That's the bottom end of the all kill switch. Apparently I can go back and forth, but I can't do my laser. So that's the button. So then when they push the all kill switch, the LCD goes black, and then the two touch panels say the all kill switch has been pushed. Now, when the judge hits the all kill switch, it goes back to where it was. So when the judge hits this, then the instructor says, you need to remove that piece of evidence, and then defense or prosecution removes it, maybe put something different on. And then when the judge clicks it again, then it goes right back to whichever laptop or whichever source it was before.
So when the judge clicks the all kill, he can't see the defense or prosecution's laptop either
No.
to confirm that they've removed whatever before he allows it back again?
This right here is what's on the Crestron, but on the LCD, the widescreen, I still have. So when I hit all kill, I see that they've changed it. I still have to approve before I can send to jury or witness. Yes?
Build in a way to capture this on video, what the process that was going on in audio?
We haven't yet, but we do have the video cameras in the room that we possibly could do a live event. We had talked about filming the students as they do this. They're kind of they don't want to be videotaped. But we may end up doing that just as a teaching tool. Any other questions? I have brought some of the spec sheets on some of the equipment that we used. I'm trying to see. I honestly thought I had. Let's see. There we go. Okay. Here's the point maker. And I forgot to mention, you can tell it what you want the image saved to. We've told it JPEG. But you can also send it straight to a printer. You can network it. Again, this was a paperless courtroom, so we didn't want any paper, any printers. I've never used this, but you could also scale images. Or I shouldn't say I have. We haven't used it yet in the courtroom. And then controllers. Most touchscreens, the tablet, the keyboard, electronic whiteboards. Again, we decided not to do the electronic whiteboard. It ships with the keyboard, the tablet, and the USB key, which was nice. We only had to add the two touchscreens. And it is really just www.pointmaker.com if you're interested. Yes? That's what Andy was telling me.
And it's really cool. I mean, because we don't get to see it every day. So if you're curious, just check it out.
Did everyone hear him? The Casey Anthony trial that's being televised, they're using a lot of this, right? The Casey Anthony? They're using a lot of this annotation technology. I've caught bits and pieces. As a mother, it's kind of hard to watch those things. Any other questions? Like I said, I will put the slides up on the agenda so that you've got links, the audio and video. I am sorry. I was here this morning and it went off flawlessly. I don't know why it was not for me. And then again, we've got the spec sheets. If you have any questions about some of the equipment we used, please shoot me an email. I'm more than happy to talk about it. All right, thank you. There we go.
Check, 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 check. Check, check, check.